against North Carolina in a game that should have never been close as 10 points. If you watch that game, North Carolina owned them that game, and they beat them by 21 as an 11. Or they beat them on a revenge spot when North Carolina lost to them by 21 points as an 11-point favorite. Since Louisville's road win at Virginia Tech, though, they've not been the same. They have just 2 wins in the last 7 games and 2 ATS covers. Syracuse absolutely embarrassed them, and they lost on the road to Boston College as a 5.5-point favorite. I think, is this a buy low spot? I don't believe this is the time where you could make a case to buy low for Louisville here. Virginia comes into this game 13-4 ATS in conference play, 5-0 in their last 5, 10-5 at home. In their last matchup, I think Virginia showed their versatility. If you look at the box score in that game, Guy and Jerome combined for 0 to 11 for 3-point land. That was then, and I think this is now. If you watch the way Virginia played against Syracuse, you had to ask yourself whether Virginia was given bigger buckets to shoot into than Syracuse, because they just couldn't miss. When they were bone dry from 3 against Louisville, what did they do? They made adjustments at the half. DeAndre Hunter took over, scoring 7 from 9 from 2-point land, and had significant contributions banging down low from Diakite. He was injured for a period of time, and he's back now. Salt only played 5 minutes in that game. I think he is a force to be reckoned with in this game. This is senior day. There's their last home game during the regular season. Jack Salt is the only senior. I think he's an emotional leader on that team, and I don't think anyone could convince me that Tony Bennett hasn't been hammering home to his team that they have to be much stronger than they are at home these days. They're a much stronger road team, and if there is a weakness, I think he's going to have them ready for this game. Defensively, I don't think we need to cover in much detail. They're the best in the business. They challenge virtually every pass. They clean the boards, and they prevent second chances, and they contest almost every shot. The biggest key to all of their defense, in my opinion, is they play at only 4% of the time in 2-foul participation. That's 9th best in the country. When I look at matchups, I think that is a statistically significant key component to their success on defense. Louisville offensively, they've taken a dip in conference play. They've shown that they aren't as efficient offensively as they were in the regular season. In non-conference games, they're ranked 7th. Louisville defensively, here is where I think you start to see where I might be going with this game. Louisville is 3rd in conference in defensive efficiency, 2nd, just slightly behind UVA in defensive effective field goal percentage. They rank 3rd in 3-point percentage defensively, which is one of Virginia's strengths. Clearly, you saw that in the Syracuse game. They clearly were able to limit Virginia in the contested 3-point shots from their snipers, Guy and Jerome, in the last matchup, and I have a feeling that they're going to be able to do that again. From a tempo standpoint, I think Virginia, they come in averaging about 62.8 possessions per game. They clearly controlled that in the last matchup, almost 9 possessions less than what Louisville averages at 71.3. From an over-under standpoint, Louisville comes in 5-0 on the under in the last 5, 8-2 in the last 10, 8-4 on the road, 11-6 in conference, and 18-12 on the season. If you simply bet Louisville unders blindly, you have money in your pocket as you sit here today. The last matchup totaled 125 points, and they went under by 9. I think Louisville's totals have been up in the 140 range many different times. I think that you can expect to see some regression in the shooting for Virginia, and I look for this game to potentially go under. I anticipate that there'll be some astronomical spreads here when Virginia hosted Florida State, 9.5-point favorite. Virginia Tech, 7.5-point favorite. Wake, 21.5. Miami, 18. And the list goes on. I see this line coming in maybe in the 12 to 14-point range. I think that's a lot to lay in a road revenge spot, but you won't get me to bet against Virginia right now on the spread. I see better value on the total. I think the line makers have the potential to give us somewhere between 126 and 129, and I'll certainly be recommending a play on the under. One of the things that I anticipate to happen is Louisville's going to come out with their best foot forward at the first half. If this game is anywhere close, I'm going to be like everyone else and saying, why aren't we taking Virginia second half in a live second half spread? I wonder what your thoughts are on that.
Well, gosh, Virginia, what are they, 22-7 against the spread? I mean, the second best in the nation. Louisville's around the 15-13-2 or something like that. Virginia only lost to Duke. Virginia has a number one seed. They have to. I mean, they only have 2 losses. Duke's got 4. Michigan State's got 6. Michigan's got 4. North Carolina got 5. They could lose this game and still be a number one seed. But if they win this game, I think they have a shot at being a number one seed in their, the East bracket. That's something to look at. And plus, it's their last home game. Louisville has no reason to play hard in this game, to be honest with you. And I don't see why they would risk injury. They're in the tournament. Are they really going to improve their seed by beating Virginia? Were they going to go from a 7 to a 6 or something, or maybe a 6 to a 5 or something? I don't know what their motivation is, because they already have enough big wins here. They beat Michigan State this year. They beat North Carolina early in the ACC. So they got the wins, and they want to probably focus on the SEC or the ACC tournament. I was on the under last game they played, and it hit, but I almost like the under a lot more just because I don't see the motivation from Louisville. And after Virginia shot lights out in Syracuse and embarrassed them, I expect a little bit more of a letdown from shooting there. So totally with you on that. I don't see how this game gets to 121 points personally. I'd say my underline is about 122, where I'd still feel comfortable taking it, man. So I absolutely agree with you there. Any last thoughts?
Nope, I agree with you. Thank you.
Texas Tech versus Iowa State, another big one. Iowa State is going to be laying about a point. Could be a pick, around a point. Over-unders 137. Texas Tech's been on fire winning their last 8 games in a row, 7-1 against the spread, those games. They're about a modest 4-4 against the spread as an away team. Iowa State's definitely in the tournament. They beat Tech this year in mid-January. They're 8-5-1 at home against the spread. Obviously in Ames. Everyone knows how hard it is to play there. But looking at the spot, Iowa could gain a slightly better seed probably for winning this game in the NCAA in the tournament, but it's not going to help them win the Big 12. So this spot is a lot more important for Texas Tech to get that share of the Big 12, because if they lose and Kansas State wins, they are out of the Big 12 and the share of the regular season. So this is a lot more of a spot for them. Road revenge game for the Red Raiders as well. So the spot really screams more Texas Tech. Of course, it's at one of the hardest arenas to play at. Home road splits definitely favor the Cyclones, but they lost 2 of their last 3 home games. That's something I'm looking at. It's like maybe the last few games, they just haven't been all that great at home. Texas Tech has been a much better conference team. They score 71 points in conference, and they only allow 62. And Iowa State scores 73 and only allows 70. Iowa State has the 10th best offense in the nation, but only the 3rd best in efficiency in the Big 12. So once they destroyed teams in the non-conference and they go in the Big 12, and they're the 3rd best offense. But Tech's defense, they're not only number 1 in the Big 12. Texas Tech's defense is number 1 in the nation on Ken Pom now. They overpassed Virginia, the Michigans. They are the top defense in the nation. So I think their defense prevails here in this super important spot, and their hunger to win this game, first regular season Big 12 title here, should prevail. Texas Tech wins 71-69. Any thoughts on that?
Yeah, I agree with you there. I think the situation sets up. Iowa State's coming off of a horrible loss against West Virginia. You got to wonder where their mind's at. Iowa State, traditionally, I think you'd look at them at home and say you can't bet against Iowa State at home here. But take a look at what's happened to them this year. February 9, TCU, 9.5-point favorite, lost by 9. Baylor, 10-point favorite, lost by 4. that TCU loss at home looks awful right now. The way TCU's been playing, and then obviously they lost back in January at home to Kansas State. But I don't think that you could convince me to invest in Iowa State right now, the way Texas Tech is playing on defense and the way Iowa State's playing. I agree with you there.
Yeah, and it's just so important for this school. Does it make them tight? I don't think so. I think they're ready here to win this game for sure. So I'm going to be on Tech here. They have just been so dominant the last 8 games too. They're very, very motivated here. Well, I'll go right into the next game. Syracuse versus Clemson. I got Clemson about a 4-point favorite, over unders 128. Both of these teams are 19-12 bubble teams, really. They kind of need a big victory. No one's guaranteed here. Back in January, Syracuse beat Clemson by 8 at home. Syracuse had some bad luck versus Virginia, as you already talked about on Monday, who shot the lights out against them. I think they were like 70-some% from 3 or better. I can't remember the number. It was bad. Bloodbath there. Clemson has had the nice part of their schedule the last few games. They faced Boston College, Pittsburgh, and Notre Dame 3 of their last 4 games, while Syracuse had to play Louisville, Duke, North Carolina, and Virginia 4 of their last 5 games, right? Been tough for Syracuse. But both of these teams are middle of the road, ACC on paper. For some reason, Syracuse scores 3 points more per game on the road than they do at home when I was looking at the home-road splits. So there's that. They like to upset teams on the road. From a matchup standpoint, Syracuse has a big advantage in blocks down low and causing turnovers, while Clemson has the advantage in overall defensive efficiency. They stop people from shooting well. The key motivation here is that Syracuse needs this win more than Clemson. I think Clemson's in. I think Syracuse needs this better. And Clemson, they just played Notre Dame on Wednesday. Syracuse has had 4 full days of rest coming into this big needed W, while Clemson has only 2 days of rest. Syracuse always comes through at the end, right? They always sneak into the tournament. They always win that game. I think they bounce back after that big loss and at least cover this. I got this game close. I got Clemson squeaking out a win by 65-63, but Syracuse covers that line. I like Syracuse +4, probably a smaller play. Thoughts?
Yeah, I can't argue with you there. I think both of these teams, from my standpoint, I don't know how they could get more bipolar than they are. Syracuse having some amazing wins and then just some unexplainable losses. Clemson, their game against Notre Dame was just such a disappointment for them. But I have a feeling that they can bounce back from that. Here's an interesting statistic that I saw while you're talking. Syracuse shoots 66.4% from free throw. That's awful. That's absolutely disgusting. And Clemson doesn't put them on the foul line.
Well, I do like Syracuse to cover that, though. I know Clemson might be able to beat the zone there. But you're right, Clemson, they don't get to the free throw line either, and they don't necessarily. They're not going to send Syracuse to the free throw line as much. They don't foul a lot, right? So maybe that's a good thing for Syracuse, right?
Yeah, absolutely.
All right, let's move into a much bigger game. Have you looked at Duke versus North Carolina this weekend? We know Zion's out, and I got this line at about -7, and I know Ken Pom shows it like -1, but everyone says North Carolina. I know the public's gonna be on North Carolina, and Zion. Everyone says they're 5-6 points to the line. What's your thoughts on this game?
Oh, man, I don't know where to stand on this game. If you just watch ESPN, they'll tell you everything you need to know about Zion Williamson. He's obviously not playing. I have wonders if he's ever going to play again this year. You and I talked about that a couple nights ago. This is the kind of game where North Carolina, the line would favor them, and then Duke, out of nowhere, will probably just boat race them. Or this could be a game that comes down to the wire and everyone watches. I don't know what to think. I mean, clearly Coach K is going to have these guys ready after what happened the last game. If Duke can shoot some 3-point shots,